Alright, we're gonna try to record this video again for the 100th time. So, this video, I've been wanting to make it for a while, and then I saw Fireside Podcast post their tier list. I listened to it. On that video, the guard gentleman talked about how he was picking up, he learned the most in 10th edition by talking to Liam Mansell about close combat, which they're having a class on their premium side. And pretty much that made me want to make the video even more because I hate specifically something about this game in general. Not in general, but like specifically this concept that every single person only plays a specific type of army. And a lot of the YouTubers or people out there who are having success, etc., or just even your local community who are, doing well, they're known for a singular army or a singular style of play. And I despise that when you're trying to be a competitive player and when you're trying to get to the upper levels of competitive play, specifically, and on top of that, when you're being a WTC player or a player who is, making content, etc., especially when you're a coach. You shouldn't be, hey, I play Tau and I coach Tau. I don't have a problem with that. The problem is, if you play Tau and you coach Tau, or any army, okay, it can be Orcs, it can be Blood Angels, it doesn't matter. The point is, if you don't understand how the other armies function and how the other armies are played, okay, then you can't coach and play Tau and then go beat the best X army in the game because you have no idea how the other style of army actually wants to play and why it's built that way. You only understand it from the examples of the games you played into them, okay, and what you make work and how you make it work. And that's okay, but your opponent could not be as good as you. That's most likely the case in this game. 90% of the time, your opponent just isn't as good as you, or you get lucky, or your army's just superior, so you win, okay, or the mission has a large impact on it. Instead of actually looking at, okay, well, if we were to list build and go down the road, the close combat army wants to do this, the shooting army wants to play like this, and the shooting army has these tricks in its sleeve basically to combat the close combat army, and then the close combat army has these play making opportunities which the shooting army would try to close that out and make sure the close combat army doesn't get into their face, and eventually you get a close game because both armies understand what each person is trying to do. They understand the loopholes to get around and basically come out on top, and they're both disrupting each other and controlling the map. Okay, board control is a third version of this, where there's a lot of armies, like it should say horde, but there's also board control lists that are just built upon durability. So some people might just play, 100 orcs, 100 gaunts, 200 Kroot, hundreds of guardsmen, and usually those armies don't really make it to winning every single event. ACDC breaks for doing really well in 10th edition, so are some other lists like Templar and other things. Basically just because they get paired into a matchup that is favorable, and a lot of people just aren't, ready for it, haven't played into it a lot, and it's rock, paper, scissors, essentially, okay? And unfortunately, there's not a lot of people that play board control, and because there aren't a lot of people that play, board control, most often you're just going rock and paper, and they're just hitting each other, well, whatever you want to do, right? It's one or two. But then as soon as board control comes into the picture, these armies are playing MSU Blood Angels. They can't go into a big brick of units that are durable. Or the shooting army brought profiles to shoot at, but they don't have enough guns to kill 200 Kroot, or they get jailed because they're missing out on some utility or some other options like countercharging units and so on. And so that is pretty much what I want to talk about here. So number one, listen to Fireside. Okay, a lot of players play one faction. It's basically called one tricking. Okay, so we don't want to one trick. Okay, so one trick. I cannot write on here. So one tricking, this is a good thing, and people recommend it when you're trying to improve with the game and learn. Okay, and that ends up propelling you forward because you're just focusing on one thing. You don't have to bounce between every single thing, learn 10,000 things at once. You just focus on one thing, you get better and better at it. At some point, you have to X this out. Fuck one tricking. Do not do this. Okay? This only gets you so far. You have to stop doing this. Even if you become like a YouTuber and you win a major or super major because you play one army like Eldar, Tau, or just Orcs, okay, you need to stop at some point. You have to stop one tricking the army, especially at that level, and move on to other things. So the other things you want to look at is maybe go. Let's say you're an Orc player. Stop playing Orcs and go play like Black Templars, a very, very durable version of Black Templars, and understand how board control works. Or go play a Tau list, and then you'll start to understand, oh man, my movement is really making me lose because I can't be. I don't want to be tied up. I'll lose. I don't want to be too far back because I'll lose board control, and I'll be stuck in the corner, and I'll lose the game by being jailed or just not scoring primary, not being able to score secondaries. So you really want to play multiple different armies. In fact, you want to play all three types. And right in the middle, there's a circle here because you want to play a mixed arms. Okay, so you want to play like a mixed. A mix is the best. Even, if you listen to Art of War a while, sometimes they'll mention, and after Worlds last year, they did mention like the top players, the best armies in the game, and the best players in the world favor mixed arms, like John Lennon and so on, because it gives you the most options. It is very difficult to play because you have to understand everything about the game, build the list absolutely correctly, because you're not favoring one side or another. You're not favoring to just all have 6 to 10 tanks in the list. You're not having a big brick of AC/DC just to go take over, the map 3 times in a row. You have to bring a mixed version of everything into one that comes together extremely well and plays the game. And then once you're playing the game, deployment becomes an issue, the map becomes an issue. You have to take into account all of these different variables and scoring, etc., and the matchups, right? It comes down to matchups and how does your list and what tools did you bring in your list are going to benefit you in the matchup, and what tools are going to not benefit or do nothing. For example, if I'm playing against a lot of Orcs, right, or some close combat Blood Angels, my Eradicators aren't going to be the best thing. But if I'm playing into a shooting army with a lot of vehicles, like Guard or Tau, my Eradicators will do more in that matchup. So I want the Eradicators around. But against Blood Angels, I can throw them out like a screen, let them die. It's not a big deal because losing 4 Melta shots is irrelevant. Okay? And so the tools you have, the units that you bring to the table, change in their key role in the game, essentially. They would go from like a damage unit to a scoring unit to a move blocking unit to a screening unit, and so on. So you want to really bring mixed arms if you can and play this style eventually. Once you can start playing mixed arms really effectively and you understand exactly how to build armies that are mixed with a little bit of everything, that's when you can really like be a well-rounded, extremely good player, because you check marked all 3 of these. Okay, you understand exactly how to play close combat, you understand how to play shooting, aka how to screen, how to move around the map, what angles do you need to watch out for, what angles do you need to hold, board control, right? How do I control this objective? And in a mixed army, you might have something that's durable or fight first, or maybe you do it by just pretending that you're a elf-like army where you go move block some portion of the map, sacrificing a bunch of units, and then you hold the objective by having another piece there, right? So you have a lot more pawns to play with. There's one thing that is not on this list, which is also important, and that's speed. Okay, now speed is something in the game that it goes faction by faction. You can have a lot of speed by advanced shooting, advanced charging, but specifically when I'm talking about speed is your movement characteristic or teleportation. And this is where elves come into play, Specifically, this only is elves, okay, in Warhammer, especially basically. Teleporting is a big part of 10th edition, going up and down and deep striking 6 inches, 3 inches away, etc. But speed, okay, is an elf thing. Now, the elf thing is something you have to go and learn um, on your own as well. So after you master shooting, close combat, and board control, elves are also kind of sometimes they can do everything, but they're really squishy and they die really quickly. But the important thing that they have that none of the other armies have, okay, is speed. Blood Angels have speed in the terms of jump packs, but it's not the same, okay? Because they have speed to get from like your deployment zone to behind a wall. Elves have the speed to. They also bring advantage charge, advantage shoot, and they have like fire fade or extra mobility that just propels them forward. They have weird gimmicks that send them flying like 30, 40 inches. And so, and they also have transports. Their transports move really, really quickly. In Blood Angels, your transports don't actually move at the speed of light and go find an angle to shoot something. That's something that speed, and that's something that elves basically give you. So with speed, this is something you have to master on the side, okay? And this is very hard. The reason why speed in elves is difficult because everything dies, and you have a lot of options. When you're given 27 units and 27 different options of who's going to do what, and you can kind of send everything forward or hold everything back, it means I'm giving you 27 buttons. You can click as many buttons as you want. But how many you click and in the order of which you click them is very important. And so you want to master speed as well, right? And some of the best players, even if you listen to like tier lists or people talk or time competitive, like formats like Art of War podcasts, their coaching battle reports, or other YouTubers, you'll often hear Drukhari players or Elf players typically have a higher skill level because they have to play multiple units and they have to be very careful, and they kind of do usually have a mixed element to them, or because they're an elf player, they play the Drukhari side, which is more melee oriented. They also play the Eldari side, which is a lot more shooting oriented generally. And some of those lists also bring a lot of durable units, so you can see that the elves can be built in multiple different ways. And there's usually an elf player plays all three, and the biggest thing about it is the speed. When you start playing the game a lot faster, and you start taking into account a lot of different like variations of play that you have available to you at basically a faster rate than others, and you understand also board control because your units can be anywhere you want at any time, and if your opponent does conquer a part of the map, you lose access to that, and you have complete agency most of the time to kind of if you really want to fight in a certain location, you can do so depending on if you go first or second or the units that you bring. You can really brute force your way into that situation if you want. So speed is a separate topic, but you want to learn this as well eventually. Mostly to just, it's kind of like playing blitz chess. If you play chess or any game, it's about efficiency and speed and how fast can you evaluate the board state and how fast can you move your army around. Okay, this is also competitively for playing 40k. You're on a chess clock. Speed matters a lot of. If you're just playing competitively, I'm sure you've timed out. I've timed out before. I've never lost a game on time, but that's because I play a lot of different things, and I also play elves, and I have to think very, very quickly, and I have to become used to all the different scenarios and make a decision. I can't sit back and just think about it, and also, I'm not playing one of these armies where my game plan is very generic of, oh, I'm playing Blood Angels, I'm going to go hide behind the ruin and then go try to find charges, or I'm going to rapid ingress, or I'm playing a shooting army, I'm going to hold the angles that I can shoot from. My opponent's going to charge and I'm going to shoot them off the map, and that's kind of it. Or board control army, I'm going to send 200 dudes up the board and see if I can survive. Okay, all those things are extremely easy to understand, and speed is not something that's as easy, and then mixed arms is also not easy because you have to bring a little bit of everything that has speed on the side, it has board control, it has shooting, it has close combat. It doesn't mean that you have to bring 10 Terminators. You can bring 5 Terminators. You can bring a Redemptor Dreadnought, right? You have a lot more control over your list, and you have a lot of options, which goes back to the elf portion. When you're playing mixed arms, you have a lot of options in terms of what something is doing. A Redemptor Dreadnought is durable. It is durable in different ways, right? So it doesn't have an invul save, but it can get cover, armor, contempt. It has -1 damage. It brings close combat, shooting, and different shooting profiles, and everything gets affected when you're playing the game, right? So it's going to be a lot more stronger in some matchups, weaker in others, and where you deploy it and how you use it is very important, because you don't have 3 Redemptors. You have 1 Redemptor. You don't have 3, like Votan Hecatons. You only have 1 or 2 Hecatons, and where you deploy them and how you want to play the game really is going to dictate the options you'll have as the game progresses, and what your opponent needs to do to overcome your strengths and overcome and take down your weaknesses and just win the game. So this is what I wanted to talk about. Essentially, I hate that the majority of people play a single army or a single style, specifically a style, and I want everybody to expand out. Okay, if you played a close combat army and you think you've pretty much done a really good job of practicing with it, playing it for a while like Blood Angels, it's time for you to move on and go play completely the opposite thing, which is going to be shooting. Okay, and once you're done with shooting, go play board control. You're going to start to understand how each of these different lists want to play, and you want to actually become proficient with them. You don't have to become an expert, but you have to become proficient, okay? Not a casual, oh, I play Blood Angels sometimes, it's fun to go up and kill something, or I play, something else that's really quickly, like advanced charging for children. I just like to go fast, hit people, and then win or lose. No, I want you to become actually proficient with the army, which means that you're competitively viable. You're okay to take it to a GT or something and either win an RTT or go take a GT and do like pretty well, and you feel like you've got a pretty solid grasp of that army, where you can say that this is one of the armies that I can play viably, and I understand what's going on in the army itself, not to an extreme level, but not to a basic level. You're in the intermediate zone where, going back to when you first started up 40K, got some coaching, whatever it was, you got to the level where you thought, okay, I know what I'm doing with this army, I know how to use my units, and I know after some practice of how to overcome some of my harder matches, and I've made some tweaks, so I've got a good grasp of everything about this army. Okay, and you want to do that with everything. Once you've done that with everything, you want to play a mixed arms army. Okay, because mixed arms is difficult, and you're gonna find it difficult because you're gonna lose resources, and once that resource is gone, you don't have a second or third one. Okay. In some cases, you lose your first 2 tanks. Well, if you're playing a shooting army with a lot of Tau gunline or some other gunline army, you just have more and more tanks, okay? And it doesn't matter. You lost 2 Predator tanks, you have like 6 more, or 4 more. And same thing with, so now I'm going on to speed basically, right? Then you want to go and play elves, specifically because you start to realize how many mistakes you make. And that's the key thing. Okay, when you make a mistake with one of these armies, one of these 3 armies on the outside of this, you can still continue to play the game because you have an extra wave. Okay, you have an extra wave of the same identity going forward. You're still trying to close out the game the same way. So you're given like a second chance, maybe a third chance, depending on what's going on and how many points you have. But when you're playing mixed arms, you kind of don't get that same chance unless you prepared yourself, and it can slip away very, very quickly. This is why Space Marines are very difficult to play, especially mixed arms Space Marines. Like the typical Space Marine, if you think about a Space Marine, it's like, I want to bring a tank, I want to bring some scoring units, I want to bring like a Redemptor. Like, think about your very casual. You want to bring a little bit of everything. Now, I can bring that little bit of everything, but play it extremely well because I know where to deploy my units correctly. Other people don't, okay? And that's the main issue. and then speed. Okay, so we're going to move on to speed. You're going to make a lot of mistakes when you're playing elves. You're going to send up too many resources, you're going to die. You're going to have resources that you would really like to have in one side of the board, but it's too far away. Okay? And so ultimately, that's going to cause you to be like, oh, I wish this was like 4 inches to the left because it moves so fast I could actually get there. Or I've already committed everything to this side of the board when I really should have kept everything in the center of the map or around the center so I can take control of the left side or the right side. But because I've chosen to go to the right side very quickly or too quickly, I can't go all the way to the left side all of a sudden. Okay, so you kind of move too many resources one way or another, and it shifts very quickly. Okay, so that's the thing about speed. And yeah, it kind of sums it up pretty much. I really want you guys to go out, play all the different styles, and my clients who have been with me for a while, like a couple of months, once they kind of master their original army that they signed up for, and they want to pick up a different army, they start to see different avenues. But eventually we get to the speed part, and they really, really start to like understand, like, I'm making a lot of mistakes, and the key thing to do once you get to once you're trying to get better at 40k is make a lot of mistakes. Play an army that's very difficult, make a lot of mistakes, because when you're playing the army you're used to and comfortable with, you're going to make less mistakes. And you're playing an army that is designed to do 1 or 2 things. Okay, you're not going to make as many mistakes because the list kind of plays itself. It just does what it's meant to do, and it's on a one-way ticket to go to do that. But when you play mixed arms or castle style lists, like very mixed arms can do everything all at once, you have the choice of, do you want to be a shooting style in that case? Do you want to be a board control? Which of these elements do you want to bring into the list, and how do you want to play the list in this certain matchup? Because you can change a mixed arms to play a completely different way at times in the same game with the same list. And they can fluctuate as well. You can go from a shooting tile, and once the shooting elements are gone, you can kind of hard push your army forward and become a board style control list, because you can do everything. You can be very flexible. Okay, and when you play the speed armies, again, you're just going to make a lot of mistakes. You're going to learn from those mistakes, and I realize the more mistakes you made, the more in the water you are, and that's how you need to make less and less mistakes. And you're going to realize that it's difficult. And when you play elves, if you do start to bring a little bit of everything and go into the mixed arms style, right? You have some banshees, some other things that shoot, like fire dragons, transports, or you bring Drukhari, and you bring some half shooting, half combat, or maybe you're going to start to understand, okay, I got so much stuff, and it's all going to die very, very quickly if I overextend. And if I don't get the job done, because I'm not playing custodies that hit on 2s, I'm not playing space marines that have rerolls, I'm playing elves that kind of go out, do their job, and they're extremely well at doing it, but they're going to be gone afterwards. How many of these do I need to bring? And this is more list building, but ignoring list building, just go pick up a good list off the internet and just practice moving your models. That's the important thing about the speed, is you practice moving, you practice looking at the board, and you practice what to do in what scenario and what mistakes you made, because you really want to try to make 100 mistakes in a game that you didn't even think about until you realized, and then fix them, right? So that's a huge part. One final thing I want to say is WTC players, okay, specifically just play 1 or 2 factions. In terms of a team, they just stick to the style of list that they play, right? So they're going to be I only play big demons, chaos knights, imperial knights, and maybe they play triple riptide just because it's close to a shooting heavy knight list or something, right? The big things. While you might have another person who just plays melee combat, chaos space marines, close combat custodies, and close combat orcs. They have no clue about anything else, and in my experience, I've talked to these players, and I've been okay, well, if this is how you win the game, by rapid ingressing on this side of the board against this army, and this is how most players, you just crush them because of this, well, what if I just put a unit there where you cannot rapid ingress anymore, right? And the answer he gave me was basically just, well, nobody really does that against me, so I never really experienced that. I'm yeah, but let's just pretend right now that I do this against you. What is your what is your like rebuttal to it, right? And he just goes, oh, I don't really have an answer. Like I can't do anything because the way that they've tailored their list in list creation is one dimensional, okay, or it has a specific way to win. Um, if you play trading card games or other competitive games, you don't want to just have one way to win, or maybe like a one like one way to win and then like a half other way to win or two ways to win. You would really want to try to have you know two, three, or four different ways to win your games. Specifically like two or three that you can win. Other avenues you can go down to like overcome a bad situation or dice or whatever it is that you're going into. And so WCC players have this issue, and I hate it. People that you watch probably have this issue. If you see a trend of them playing the same army or uploading about the same thing, right? It's being a faction specialist is one thing. People recommend it. I don't actually recommend it. I recommend that you go down that road for a certain amount. Don't become a specialist, and then go play other armies. If you're trying to become better overall at everything, and it's going to help you play your own faction better as well. And that's kind of what you should be doing. Of course, if you only care about playing orcs, so you don't give a shit about anything else, then that's your right. But if you want to win with orcs a lot more, understand what you need to bring to the table, go dabble in other armies, go try to understand them to like a certain level, right? Maybe play 20 games with other style of lists and be competitive with it, and then go back to your army and you'll be like, okay, I've got new experience, new things to do. I'm going to change up my list. I know how to play so many different styles now that I can actually put in just a single unit of tank bustas, and I know exactly how to use it because I'm so used to playing, or I've just gone through a training arc of playing shooting armies, board control, all this stuff, mixed arms, and elves, right? So now I know how to control the board and then use the unit to come down and cause havoc. I said mixed arms there. Don't worry about mixed arms. That's not something you need to go and play specifically. That is like the end goal that you're trying to reach, is playing a mixed army really well and understanding how fluid it can be in what it brings to the table and how it plays the game turn by turn, and how quickly it can go from playing a board control to a shooting to a close combat style, because it has everything. In terms of what I'm trying to say here is, if something starts at 50% and it's right in the middle, and the top end is like let's say 51%, right? So it's two-way spectrum. One side is aggressive, one side is defensive. A mixed arms list can start right in the middle. That means if it moves even 1% either way, it becomes a defensive oriented list or a offensive oriented list, more so than the other one. And that's what you want to be. When you play a close combat army, you might be 80% aggressive. So for you to go from 80% aggressive to a defensive, you're gonna have to go down like 31%. That's a big swing. Takes a while to get there. But if you play a mixed arms style, you can change it up very quickly. You can change it up how much you want to go one way or another, and you start off at 50, so you can go from 50 to 60 or 80 very quickly if you choose to, depending on how you build it. And you can go defensive more so as well. 80 might be an extreme, but going from 50 to 60% aggressive, and then your opponent has to deal with that, can be difficult for people, and they might not expect it because they think you're preparing yourself to like go super aggressive or super defensive, and then all of a sudden you change it up because you went first or because you went second, and now they have to retaliate to that, but they can't because their army list starts at 80% aggressive or 80% defensive. They don't have the capability to go 80% defensive all the way to offensive and retaliate against you, while you have that option. That's the same thing with speed. Speed, once you have the ability to go extremely quickly all over the place, with elves, Drukhari, and Eldar, and do multiple things, your opponent has to respect it, understand it, play around it, and it's up to you to decide what to do with the 100 different variables you have and the 27 different units that you have on the table. Okay, hopefully this was useful for you guys. It's kind of a ramble. Just wanted to put this out there, and hopefully you guys go out and play different armies and learn all these different style of things.